Hi, I'm Emma Heuston, founder of The Remote Expert. This is video number 3 of my 5-video series about working from home and what to do. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that's been creeping in for all of us since COVID-19 was announced, and that's mental health issues. And, working when you think too hard about what could happen, you get anxiety. My husband just sent me an article in Lismore, which is a town pretty close to us, that a manager of a supermarket was attacked because there was no flour left. So it's really important to think about. And certainly if you're being asked to work from home and self-isolate, can go a bit stir crazy. I talked about sort of social and mental health issues for remote workers in my book, The Tracksuit Economy: How to Work Productively and Effectively from Home. So in that book, it's dealt with at part 2, the pitfalls and challenges of remote work. Now, I suppose too, when I wrote that book, some remote workers choose to work from co-working spaces. While I understand that's happening a little bit, the focus is definitely on work from home, which has its own challenges for some people. Now, there are people who are just better suited to working remotely. I like it. I'm an introvert. But there are people I know that go a bit crazy. They like the energy of an office. So that can be really challenging if you know that you get energy from other people. If I'm around other people a lot, I feel drained. So I get more energy working alone. Whereas if you are the opposite and you get energy from being in an office in that communal atmosphere, then it can actually be a real struggle, and you need to be mindful of that going into it and address those things as you go. So I'm going to talk about 4 things today: the invisible worker syndrome, perception, isolation, motivation, and burnout. Actually, that's 5. Clearly maths wasn't my strong point. That's why I went into the law. Got invisible worker syndrome, and that's sort of when head office forgets about you. Now, if you're in a hybrid team like I used to work in, that can be quite an issue, especially if you've got a lot of people in head office and you're this remote person off somewhere. You can be forgotten about with things like free lunches or Friday afternoon drinks and not get the same perks, and that can feel a bit soul destroying after a while. You can also, they can have meetings around the water cooler, grabbing people, tapping them on the shoulder that you're not invited to. So that can be quite tricky when you work remotely. Having said that, if everybody is working remotely, if you have a wholly remote team during this COVID-19 crisis, then a lot of that stuff will be more on the radar of managers, because they have to treat everyone equally, because everyone is at home, get in touch with them the same way, give everyone the same benefits. So if you do still have some people in head office and you're remotely, watch out for that. And actually, that's how I became really outspoken. I think being a remote worker, I realised, and as the company I was working at grew, if I didn't speak out or ask for things or let them know I was there or participate, then my experience wasn't going to be as good. So I urge you, if you do work remotely during these times or other times if you're watching this video, to speak up and be heard, and make sure you participate, because you really only get in, or you really only get back what you put in. So if you're going to be passive and there, I would encourage you to speak up, even if someone asks you if you're okay, have a morning chat, that you respond. You don't just ignore emails, because if someone can't see you, they don't know that you've read the email. They actually don't know if you're okay. And particularly with all this anxiety around mental health with isolation and COVID-19 and anxiety, it's great to have that physical, voice contact or video contact. So I'd suggest you do that with your co-workers or a friend or family member at least a couple of times a day. And that makes all the difference. It can feel like you're having a virtual coffee and a chat together. Just a phone call really helps. And a phone call with someone who's calm or, you know, puts the right spin or perspective on things is wonderful. The other thing I'm going to be talking about is perception. So in the past, remote work has been a bit of a dirty secret for some companies. There's been this perception that you need to be seen to succeed. And that's not the case at all. You can work really productively remotely. And actually, I think this period of isolation for society is going to be a really good equaliser in that regard, to have that perception that you're a valuable team member regardless of where you work from. A fellow remote worker was chatting with me this morning, and she's been working remotely for the last 7 years. And she commented that some other people contacting her now with sort of making sure they put on messages and things. Oh, I'm working remotely for the next, you know, however many years. And she said, well, I've been doing that for 7 years. Because really, I didn't know. And that's the thing, you don't know. And you don't necessarily have to tell people. It's great if they're going to be going into your office, or you've got different contact hours, you should definitely mention that. But it's not going to make any difference to the job you do 9 times out of 10. So just be mindful of that. It's not a disability. It's not something special you're doing. It's just your job. And it's called work for a reason. So you're working no matter where you are. Isolation can be a real issue. And particularly as we're told to be doing this social distancing, it's becoming an issue. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you jump onto social media or the news and you've got all this trauma and distressing news and uncertainty. So you're trying to avoid that, but in doing that, you don't want to avoid your social networks. So I would call, video conference, set up chat groups to chat about things that aren't that, share a joke. Another colleague of mine, Martin Richardson, who I'm in the Autonomio Scale-Up group, said he has been calling people, 5 colleagues or friends at lunchtime every day to have a chat, see how they're doing. And that's really nice, and that just gives them that connection. Sometimes if you were feeling a bit down, I know there are times over the last week I've been feeling a bit, what if, a high-risk family member gets infected? You kind of need to talk to someone. So I just rang my husband and chatted to him before as well, because I'm here by myself today. So it's kind of something you need to do, and make sure you keep that real human connection. So we might not be able to physically see people other than the family or the people we're living with, but you can still have that really great emotional and intellectual connection as well. And make sure you keep it light. I've been watching comedies before bed instead of news, which has been really helpful, and reading. And part of that too is motivation. So if you feel isolated, it can be hard to be motivated, especially with what's going on. And if you have a day where you need to shut down for a couple of hours, that's okay. No one is expecting you to be a machine. It's quite tough times. If it's day after day, then I think reach out to a manager or a colleague or a friend who can help you, because you don't want to sink into this sort of lonely kind of hole there. And the last thing I'm going to chat about today is burnout. There is a perception, I've mentioned this in my videos earlier in the week, that remote workers are, it's not really working. They're lazy. They don't work as hard as everyone else in an office. And that's not true. And in fact, remote workers are liable to overwork because we live in our workplace. So it can be there. It's easy to duck down to your office, do something, get back online after dinner. So be really careful, and I call that bring your boundaries. And I talk about boundaries in my Supercharge program as well, that I run for entrepreneurial women wanting to supercharge their online service business. And the boundary thing is really important, because the work's going to be there tomorrow. If it's stressful, you need to keep the same hours you would in an office. You need to keep those weekends free, and you need to keep that sense of normalcy. And putting those boundaries in place will, and having a separate workplace really will as well. So they are my tips. I'm going to share with you now my social media details. This is where you can follow me for updates or see what I'm doing around the remote work. I've got some webinars planned with Vanessa Vanderhoek from Flex Agility Group later this week, and a webinar with Claudia King from Automio next week planned. So I'm definitely going to be spreading the word a bit further beyond this initial series. And anytime you want to DM me or send me a message through any of these sites or my email, by all means do so. So I'm on Facebook as the Remote Expert, and I have a group called Rev Up Your Service Business, and that is where I share online business tips for people who work online and remotely, or in this case who want to or have started to, because all of a sudden we've all become online businesses, or we're going to need to be to survive in the next 6 to 12 months with the way the economy is going. I'm on Instagram at the remote_expert, and LinkedIn as Emma Heuston, also as the Remote Expert, and Twitter as the Remote Expert as well. Although I must confess, I'm not a real tweeter, and you probably will find me on Facebook the most. So that's me for today. I'm going to be talking tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, a little bit about a few tips on how you can turn that business that maybe has been traditionally bricks and mortar into an online business. And I've done that myself with the Remote Expert. I'm a wholly virtual law firm. I work from home. So this week has seen me make absolutely no changes to my daily routine. I have seen a very big influx in remote work inquiries, people buying policies, business owners telling me that their state's work health and safety, their work cover has contacted them, sending out emails saying you need 3 things. You need a variation to employment contract, you need a remote work policy, and you need a self-audit for work health and safety of workspaces when people do work from home. So I've got a bundle on my website, which is the one in my shop with the bright yellow, the only yellow one, which covers all those 3 things that our state work cover authorities are starting to tell businesses they need when they work from home. And a lot of that, it is partly some duty of care, which it talks about this mental health issues and isolation, as well as an employer. So get in touch if you've got any questions, and I'm going to be looking forward to sharing some online business strategy tips with you tomorrow. See you later.